Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight Entertainment. I'm Alexis, and I'm joined by Peter Martinez and David Francisco. Here, of course, a show that talks about movies and everything going on in the world of movies and more. Today, we're going to be discussing perhaps what may be known as the single biggest bomb in the history of the box office, and that would be Joker Folie 2. And then also what ramifications there may come of that, as well as revelations that have been communicated through Variety that there are these super fan focus groups being put into effect by studios and how that's going to affect movie going forward. Maybe a little bit of Wild Robot. In many ways, one can consider this show to be the culmination of what we've been discussing these last few weeks and then also these last 10 years. And Kyle Lira has actually provided tonight's title. Our creator, a wonderful creator of this podcast, I contacted him a few minutes before we recorded today, and I asked him, given all of what we're talking about, what would be a really good title? And when he said it, I was laughing out loud, considering also the fact that Joker Folie 2 opens with a homage, if you will, to Looney Tunes. That's all, folks. That'll be our show today on Red Spotlight number 492. Guys, how are we? Are we alive? Are we fine? Are we dying inside? What's up today? Yeah, basically. You guys had the exact same response. That's wonderful. To begin off today, real quick, challengers might win a Golden Globe, maybe. It is being submitted for a comedy, for Best Comedy Movie of the Year. The fact remains is this Oscar season is going to be very much slim pickings. Peter asked me this question: who are the contenders? Honora, Amelia Perez, and The Brutalist, and they're all going to be in drama. And with the musicals, not... Oh, well, here's the thing. Challengers might win. Joker Folie 2 is kind of a fall musical, and people thought that it could. Maybe it might still get nominated. Who knows? It is the Golden Globes. But then again, Wicked is coming into this. And while we're talking about Wicked, David and I were talking about this before the fact that we came on the air today, and we were surprised by the all of a sudden interest in this movie. All three of us here in this podcast have been very much put off by the marketing and the trailers of Wicked. And then all of a sudden this week, they put out a long TV spot that was filled with all of the musical moments that the other trailers were so robbed of. All of a sudden, they're like, hey guys, we wanted to remind you, we're a musical. And then it wasn't just that. The ticket sales came in through Fandango, and some people are even now projecting a $100 million opening weekend. Peter, I want to go to you first. Is this kind of shocking? I wasn't expecting anything successful for Wicked because musicals don't seem to make much money these days.
I don't know. Wicked was such a big hit. It could be one of.
So was Cats.
But that's different. Cats is stupid.
Yeah,
that was
the
always
beginning.
stupid.
We knew it was going to be a joke.
Yeah, Wicked is actually about something that people care about, which is the Wizard of Oz. And people do like Ariana, Chiquita,
Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo.
Ariana Grande, yes. I don't know how much they care about Cynthia Erivo, but they care about Ariana Grande.
Yes.
Ariana
is gonna do for Wicked what Lady Gaga should have done for Joker 2, basically.
Also, there's no movies out. Joker bombed.
Yeah.
Right? It's been a long time since a hit, so maybe it wasn't gonna be 100 million. But you know what?
There's a dry spell.
Yeah, pretty big dry spell.
Mm-hmm.
So, everything's working in that movie's favor, I think. So,
in a way that it wasn't even just a few weeks ago. Things have almost completely turned around, and I was also saying with David that I was actually a big fan of that TV spot. This actually looks like a far better movie because we're actually seeing those numbers, which they were not at all present in the trailers, which because the trailers are actually making it be more like a generic blockbuster action adventure movie, a la Alice in Wonderland or something.
Sure, but that's the trailers that it's gonna get. That's gotten it to 100 million opening weekend, not the TV spot.
That's interesting. That may be true then. I had not considered that, but you are correct there. Okay, I can.
But Wicked is a known musical.
That's the other thing too that David was saying. Who doesn't know Wicked? If people know of Wicked, you know it's a musical.
Yeah,
it's associated with Broadway.
Defying Gravity.
Defying Gravity.
Gravity.
I remember having a conversation with like one of my friends from journalism school way back 5-6 years ago. Exactly, quotation marks, journalism school. He was from
That's what he calls the underpass.
He's from Bayou country. He was originally from Louisiana. He was a really good conversationalist, but he was a big fan out of nowhere of Broadway and particularly Wicked. And that's when the casting, I think, was barely coming out of like what was gonna be in that movie. But that was 5+ years ago. Mm-hmm. He really wasn't. Not that I know of. Not that it matters either way. I don't know what the fuck what was that comment for. Anyway, that was 5+ years ago, and people who are huge fans of Wicked are going to turn out for this no matter what. And
you were 35 at the time.
Yes, and now I'm 53. Here's the thing. The other component about this is to a much, 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 much smaller degree. There's a really interesting dynamic being put up here. You are correct, Peter. There is a dry spell of movies. There's a lot of reasons for that. The strikes happened, and we're feeling that in every aspect of this year. There's just been like these huge weeks where nothing has come out. On the other, and then there's also, I think to me, this year is the first year where we're finally be able to feel the effects of all of these unregulated mergers that never should have been allowed to happen. Last week on this show, I was talking with Alexis how and for many years now, there needed to be regulation. These mergers should have never happened for many reasons, and this was one of those reasons. People were saying it at the time, it would result in fewer films, and here we are. Here we are. So that's building up this like, well, people want movies. It just so happens that at the same time that Wicked's coming out, so is Gladiator 2. And I wonder if both are going to find enough room to do well on their own, considering it's going to be at a big holiday weekend. It is Thanksgiving weekend.
I feel like Gladiator 2 will do well because it's a classic dad movie.
Yeah.
But it's a classic, interesting dad movie. Like, there's swords, and it's got the history angle with, like, the big Colosseum and rhinos and battles and Pedro Pascal. It's hitting all the quadrants.
Paul Mescal.
Well,
Paul Mescal, Denzel Washington.
Denzel, yes, absolutely, Denzel. It's a known name, right? People know what Gladiator is. I think it's hitting all the
best picture winning Gladiator too, by the way.
Run on TNT every Saturday, Gladiator, you know?
For 24 years.
Yeah, so no, I think it'll do well for sure.
I hope it's good too. Mm-hmm. I really am hopeful that it's good. I hope both Wicked and Gladiator are good, and I do feel I hope that people do make it a bit of an event to see them both that week, because there are such really interesting types of movies for sure. My only concern is this. The week before, guess what opens? Moana.
Oh, yeah. Never mind. That one's going to make $1 billion. Easy. If Inside Out 2 did that, Moana could do that. Yeah.
That doesn't preclude other things from being successful, but it is going to create a turf fight. I saw Grace Randolph on her show saying that Disney is going to fight to push Wicked and Gladiator out of those premium screens.
Well, if it has like a $120 million opening weekend, it's going to be an easy fight for them, right? Like, yeah. That's an easy argument. But even then, Disney can still fight because they've had the two biggest movies of the year, right? So the two
biggest movies generally since COVID. I mean, that's so you're correct there.
They can argue like, hey, you want to fucking play ball with us? You keep the screens open for us.
That's really interesting. I feel like, look, there have been some movies this year that I've loved, but on the whole, it has been maybe the most depressing year yet, because like there's been hardly any movies, and at the same time, the two biggest ones are by Disney, and they're also they're just like nothing movies. Deadpool and Wolverine and Inside Out 2 hardly inspire anything of a vision for what the next 10 years are going to look like. And then Moana 2 is in that same vein. And if you're telling me at the end of the year,
they're going to triple down.
I mean, seriously.
On every bad instinct, yeah.
It's just terrible. The only silver lining in Disney that would give us hope, because we don't. When Disney succeeds, it feels like everybody else fails, and that needs to change. It isn't happening. But you told me something the other day that I found quite interesting. Yesterday, you told me that you were not expecting great things about what they are going to be billing as their big, holiday film, which was Mufasa, the Lion King film.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to make money. I really don't. I'll be very surprised if it makes big money.
The marketing has been non-existent, and as you said, it was it was one of these sequels that never should have existed in the first place.
Mm-hmm. It feels like that. It feels like a Joker 2 situation.
And guess what? It's been 5 years since 2019. The 5-year curse. The 5-year curse.
That's something I do maintain. The 5-year mark seems to be just the Goldilocks of when you should not release a sequel. Mm-hmm. You release it 2 to 4 years later. Or you wait much longer after 5. But once you hit that 5-year mark, it's right in the sweet spot where audience have forgotten, and it's still too recent where they don't quite care either. So if you release it like a decade later, all of a sudden there's a little bit of nostalgia for it. It's like, oh yeah, okay, cool. If you release it within the 2 to 4 years, audiences still kind of care. Once you hit that 5-year mark,
yeah,
it's a dead zone for sequels.
Which is why we believe anyway was one of the first indicators that Joker 2 wasn't going to do as well. There are other things that took over after that, but that was one of the first indicators. So that is interesting. One wonders though, Peter, you were saying how Wicked is obviously a adaptation of Wizard of Oz. It would be fun to see how if this ends up being good and successful. This would come a year after a take on Willy Wonka, which was also a musical, which also was successful. That would be pretty interesting because typically those kinds of adaptations are not very much exciting because of why are you messing with established hits? But
yeah,
if they're good, they're good. I wanted to ask you though,
for Wonka was good. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. But I do feel though Wonka came out December, correct?
It felt like a December movie. So.
Yeah. If it were up to you, would you tell Universal, would you tell the people who are behind Wicked and Gladiator to forget about Thanksgiving, and then just move it all to Christmas, and then give Moana that space?
Yeah, I would. To me, it feels like more of a Christmas movie to me.
Mm-hmm.
Both of them, Wicked. I think.
I think more so Wicked.
Yeah,
Wicked more so.
Wicked.
Wicked more so, yes.
Gladiator,
because
you can probably release it.
No, not Gladiator. Gladiator's a Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah.
I think you eat a lot of meat and then you feel like watching two people stab each other.
Like Knives Out.
Yes. Whereas December and Christmas time is the only time people are a little bit tolerant of musicals.
Unless it's in Disney animated form.
Yeah. And Wizard of Oz. I think on the whole it's just a more of a December film. I think it would do better especially because I just don't think Mufasa's gonna do anything. I feel like families, if they had to pick between Wicked and Moana, they'll see Moana. If they had to pick between Mufasa and Wicked, they'll pick Wicked.
Yeah, before we button up this issue in box office, two more things. There's another Venom movie that's happening for whatever reason.
Venom.
Is that going to do well, or is that going to bomb?
Yes, it is. It's going to do well.
You say for sure. Okay.
Because it's Venom.
Yeah, at least for sure better than Joker.
Did the second? No, for sure. I mean, you can't do worse than that, for sure. But do we? I know that. Look, the first one was a massive hit, but the second one wasn't.
Made a lot of money. No,
it still made a lot of money.
Yes.
But was Venom 2 after or before COVID?
I
think it was after.
Remember. It might have been after. I don't know.
I think it was around the same time as Eternal, so it would have been 2021. Does that sound accurate? Around there, 2021, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably.
Okay, let's just say that. Okay, I haven't seen the Venom films, and I never intend to. So Peter, have you seen them?
No.
I just saw the first one.
I hate them.
The trailers put me off. Like that the voice for the Venom thing, I want to throw up every time I hear it. It's like, why do people like this? I don't get it. It's like, yeah, it's stupid. And stupid as a stupid does. So it may do well, but what if it doesn't do well? What does that say for comic book films if it doesn't do well?
If it doesn't do well, I think it just means people are waking up. I think Sony's been pumping out shit films.
They did Madam Web earlier this year.
Madam Web. They still have to release that stupid fucking Craven movie.
Is it still coming out?
Yes. The worst decisions humanly possible with how to handle Spider-Man have been made by Sony. And like extend that shit. Morbius. Venom is a very liked character. But the quality of the films, from what I've seen, are not in any way different to like Morbius or fucking any of these other Sony.
The perception is though.
Well, they're probably better than Madam Web. But I think what you've seen is people are kind of over this bullshit like stringing along of audiences. I think that's why. I think that's a reason why Joker failed. I think that's the reason why a lot of Marvel movies have been failing.
Speaking of Marvels, did any of us have any feelings about that Thunderbolts trailer?
No,
right? Not really.
I mean, the only thing I can say is Florence Pugh. It's kind of cool, but
she's always cool.
Yeah, that's the thing. But even
it just feels like the most boring version of
Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
None of these characters are like interesting.
None of them at all.
None of them are like bad guys. Not really. Because even the two official bad guys, they were like brainwashed or manipulated, so they weren't really bad guys. The only actual bad guy potentially was U.S. Agent, but they completely fucking butchered his character at the end,
which is what Marvel does.
Falcon, yeah, they completely just said, actually, whoopsie, nuh-uh. We completely take back our entire characterization of who this guy is at the end of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So it's like, it just seems boring. It's just, yeah, the most boring version of a Suicide Squad.
Taking a peek into the future, how do you feel from a performance standpoint, and then also maybe from a quality standpoint, Captain America and Fantastic Four are going to do next year?
I don't know about Captain America. It'll be interesting to see how much of it is Chris Evans, how much of it is whatever. It also maybe depends on the reviews, and from everything we've heard about this movie, god fucking damn it, did they just fall apart making this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they can pull a miracle out their ass, but they haven't been able to lately.
And what you're referring to, Peter, may be the worst we've heard yet out of a Marvel project, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah. Honestly, I think they would have sent the movie out in months ago, like the version that existed months ago. But I think the failings have scared what's his name?
Kevin Feige
into actually trying a little bit harder. Because he very clearly sent out movies that just weren't finished and were kind of shit. But I think he really got high on his own supply that he could do anything and he would shit gold. But then when movies started to fail, it's all like, oh, maybe we should care about the movies we're making. So they like completely reshot that movie like 4 fucking times. I don't know. What was the other movie you said?
Fantastic Four.
I think Fantastic Four is going to make money. Because
no matter what. Because it's Fantastic Four.
People like the Fantastic Four.
Mm.
Even though they've had like 2 other films where people are like, oh, it's not great. They're actually not terrible. But it's Marvel's first family. It's they are one of the few big Marvel characters that has never been adapted. And man, dude, audiences don't really know this yet, but they completely fucked up the Fantastic Four as far as their relationship to Doctor Doom. But audiences don't know that yet.
They will soon in the years to come.
Not before the movie's out. So I think people will go in pretty excited, I think, for Fantastic Four. And people like Pedro Pascal and shit like that.
Yeah, I feel like Marvel Studios is kind of like the Donald Trump of the movie world, where people are just deferential to them, and they just get so many chances, even though they've shit the bed so many times.
Well, they had like a decade of success.
So there is that.
That's what it draws from.
Right.
So I think people... It takes a lot more failures, I'll put it that way. There's a lot of franchises that only have like 2 movies and then 6 shit ones. So if people think you've had 22 good movies, I don't know how many shit movies you got to make before people give up on you.
Pivoting over to the other side of the coin here, I'm pulling for James Gunn, but my heart goes out to him because I think he has a really uphill battle to climb. It was so not fair. 2 years ago, he was given the reins to the new DC studios. He and Peter Safran are running things now. But it's already a 2-year-old news story, and 5 DC films have come out, and they all have bombed. And they've bombed hard, and seemingly one harder than the last. I mean, I would think, like, first it was fucking, what was it, Shazam, then came The Flash, then came Aquaman, and Blue Beetle nobody saw either. Then Joker now becoming an even bigger bomb than all of those other ones combined. Like, this does not set a lot of confidence for how... I think this might hurt Superman at this point, and I'm frightened about that because it's Superman.
So many of these movies should not have even been greenlit. Joker 2 should not have been greenlit. Aquaman 2 really shouldn't have been greenlit. They really jumped the gun. They jumped the gun with a lot of these movies. Blue Beetle,
that was supposed to be a Max movie.
Yeah, I don't know what they were. Again, well, it just sucks because he's thrown in the worst situation because he's in charge for 2 years and they release all these movies, but he never had any hand in any of those. So he's holding the gun while there's a dead body on the floor, and it's like he never fired it. But he's holding the gun. He never fired it though. So it's and also when you have a franchise that's like bombing like this, what you really want is to give audiences enough time to miss you. Mm-hmm. And they haven't, We're going from project to shit project. These were the rejects, but there were so many fucking reject projects that it's taken this long for all of them to come out that by the time Superman comes out, there will have been no time in between at all. Are there any more DC projects before Superman? I'm trying to think.
I mean, movies? I don't think so.
Movies.
No, there's no more movies.
Okay, thank fucking God. Like, it's...
We can't take any more movies.
Yeah, it's just... Shows, sure, right? Because I think people understand that shows and movies are a different medium. But, man, oh man, it's in a bad situation. It would have been great if you had these 2 years of nothing DC to really get people a little bit more like, well, let's this is new. We haven't really seen much of anything recently. Yeah.
It's honestly astounding because it's not just that they were all big bombs. With the exception of 2 films, the rest were pretty bad movies.
Yeah. He needs a killer first trailer. Mm-hmm. I think if that sets the tone of like, this is awesome, you can get people really excited. I think what also help is to just really show that it's something for kids too. Because I think what's been tough with DC is just bringing kids, and it shouldn't be. It's fucking Superman, but bringing the kids to see these movies, So yeah, I'm hopeful. I am a little worried. It's just not. He's not in the best position for all this.
Yeah, it's definitely. It's not looking the best right now because of like all of this garbage that he's had to really just dig his way through. But since we're talking about garbage, let's just go ahead and get into it. We perhaps, and I teased this off at the beginning of the episode here, I think we may have witnessed the single biggest bomb in the history of, well, certainly as far as like how long we've been covering movies, then also just maybe of the whole century at this point. These last 2.5 decades. Joker 2 is a sequel to a 2-time Academy Award winning film for Best Actor and Best Score out of 11 total nominations, and it made $1 billion worldwide off of a $65 million budget. And the sequel was teased and pitched as a musical that would star also Lady Gaga as a Harley Quinn. But it also had a $200 million budget. And this past weekend, it opened to $38 million at the domestic box office.
That's real bad.
On top of one of the most atrocious RT scores I've ever seen. The audience score is lower than the critics.
D.
We have 33 to 31%, and as Peter just mentioned, a D cinema score, which is the single worst score for a comic book film in the history of cinema score, even worse than Madam Web.
It's pretty bad.
By every metric imaginable,
Pretty bad.
This has been an absolute abject failure. Maybe that's even being too kind. It has been an unmitigated disaster. I think that's more appropriate for what this is. There's a lot to say about this. I feel like just to tee things off, did anybody here get this? I mean, I guess Alexis, we had that clip. She was so wrong. She was like, I'm hearing people, it might be a big hit. It might be a big hit. But like, did anyone here get the sense that Joker was going to do as well as the first one did? I don't feel like that was ever on the table.
No. Nah, I never thought it was. I think as soon as I heard that it was going to be a musical, I'm like, it's not going to make as much money. And not because it was a musical, but because, well, kind of because it was a musical, but that's only because the people who like the first one aren't going to be
receptive to that idea.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to mix very well. I think we all felt it immediately, right? 'Cause when they first said that, we were like, the audience for the first film isn't, a lot of them are not going to be very thrilled with that kind of idea.
Mm-hmm.
So that was actually part of it. So yeah, we had that feeling for sure. The feeling that we also had is look, it also came off of the 5-year curse, as we mentioned earlier. It also came off of all of these other DC films bombing before the fact. So all of these things are just kind of like poisoning the water well, if you will. But then maybe the biggest mistake of all was a month before they decided to take this out to Venice Film Festival, and then the reviews were terrible. They were not very good to begin with, and you let a month of bad reviews set in, and then more reviews come out like a few days before, and they were even worse. Peter, I want to go to you here. Just your reaction to all of this, the sheer anger and hatred that has been thrown out here. I'm really curious to hear what have you been thinking as this story has been unfolding, as we've seen the scores get lower and lower and lower, and the numbers get worse and worse and worse.
Well, I don't watch it like you do because I'm not a sadistic bastard monster.
No, and you know what? I'm gonna wear that as a badge of honor here because let me tell you something. I told this to you flat out. This was revenge. This was flat out revenge for the really out of hand reaction it received the first time around. David, I know you like that film. I'm not talking about you. I'm just talking about people went.
I'm talking about you, David.
They went to town with this movie as if it was the best thing ever. And I couldn't stand it. And the fact that many people who love the first one feel personally insulted by this one warms my heart so much. So now, of course, I was going to dance on that grave. I'm not going to for a second deny that. I embraced it. I became the Joker just watching these
Very
reviews
clear.
come in and these numbers come in.
If I would ever describe someone as a Batman villain,
oh, come on.
Alexis Soto, top of that list.
Come on. And it had been a long time to have had this much fun with a movie failing. This was fun. I mean, come on. I mean, look, the idea of this film was nice and all, but and I would have loved a great version of this story, but when you remind yourself who was making it, it all kind of falls into place. Peter, your take.
I don't know. It's I never cared for the first one. I didn't hate the first one, but man, oh man, did I not care for it. To me, it was kind of a nothing movie. It just kind of took images from Martin Scorsese's best work and threw them together. All I could think when people were praising the movie is like, man, you're really going to love this director named Martin Scorsese. He made the same exact movie, but 10 times better. There's like a point of view to it and everything.
I believe you recently acquired the 4K, didn't you?
Oh yeah, I did. Very nice. Very, very nice. So when this one was coming out, it's like it made $1 billion, I guess. Very clear. Obviously, it was made just for the money. There was clearly no setup for a second one or story. So when there was a sequel, it's like, I made $1 billion. Okay, getting Lady Gaga to do Harley Quinn. This is another thing they need to stop doing. They do the same characters over and over, especially in television too. How many like CW fucking shows of like Batman or Batman characters have there been? How many iterations of Joker and Harley Quinn, and they do this shit over and over and over, and 9 times out of 10, it's not even done well. So you're just killing an audience's interest in these characters. They need to fucking stop. Well, luckily, maybe these shit numbers will show them that they need to stop. Yeah, so it failing, it's somewhat of a surprise. I thought Todd Phillips would be able to deliver a competent film, enough so that people would overpraise it the way they did the first one. But apparently it's not even competent enough to like get any sort of appraisal. So that's something. But like, I didn't care for the first one. So even a bombing doesn't even matter that much to me. It's like, fuck this movie. I guess it just means that a more worthy film will hopefully get into that Best Picture category.
Yeah, because
everyone was acting like this one was a shoo-in, for top 10 Best Picture. But now that literally everyone hates it, hopefully that just means a more deserving film gets in there.
Yeah, let's not forget that there were plenty of people who pride themselves on their Oscar predictions that were placing this for Best Picture, Director, Screenplay, Actor, Actress.
Before it even came out.
David, you told me before we started recording today that you feel like at this point, again, you liked the first film a lot. You, I believe, have made the decision to not bother watching this movie, which is, I think, what a lot of people ended up doing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I feel like I should watch it just because I kind of want to get my own opinion about it, but I also can't really ignore that everyone who's seen it just does not like it. It's
just block Alexis Soto. That's all you gotta do.
What? What did I have to do with this?
I do it from time to time as well. Believe me.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
you'll hear the birds chirping, the wind singing, the sun in the sky.
The feeling is mutual. Continue, David.
But yeah, but then also too, like I barely go to movies myself, so like I really do have to choose. It's like, okay, it's a sequel to a movie that I really liked. Should probably watch it, but at the same time, The Wild Robot is out. It's first of all DreamWorks. Second, you told me who the director was and what else he's made, and I'm like, oh, this gets me even more excited. And it's getting good reviews. So
yes,
it's like at this point, there's no decision here, But
yeah, there's really no competition on like which one you're going to go ahead and pick and everything. Yeah, I feel like to just revel in this victory for me personally, I never in my wildest dreams could have imagined this happening. I just like, to me, look, I don't necessarily feel sure if Todd Phillips' intent was to put up a big middle finger to fans of the first movie. I feel like what's happened with Joker 2 is kind of the same thing that happened with Joker 1, which was people just seemed to be convinced that Todd Phillips had a lot of intent as far as like what he wanted to be communicated by his movie. And I don't think that's ever something that was on the table. I think time and time again it's been proven, even Todd Phillips himself has admitted this in interviews. He does not understand in any way how his work could possibly be perceived, or what the context would be for anything that he does in the movies. So I feel like and I think a lot of people feel personally insulted by this movie, and I think making a mistake. Why is that audience RT score so low? Why is that cinema score a D? Because fans of the first film felt personally offended by the film. And I think most of them feel that the director was telling them to go fuck themselves. I think that's giving too much credit to Todd Phillips. I don't think he intended that whatsoever. If that's how people are feeling, it's because Todd Phillips is an incompetent filmmaker. I don't think that's what he was trying to do. Go ahead.
That's the other reason why I kind of want to watch it. It's because, for one thing, anyone who says that about any other movie, like with The Last Jedi, how people were like offended about what they did with Luke and everything. Like, okay, I need to see why exactly you feel that way, especially when it comes to the first movie. I just like that movie because everything that led up to the end made sense. Like, that's really all it is why I like it. Like, every single thing that happened.
Scenes were in sequential order.
Okay, come on.
It's because, like, people keep saying, people say like he had like some big message about mental health and all that, and I mean there were some things about that, but then others are saying it's like, no, it was kind of shallow what he was saying and everything. It's just people keep talking about like what the big picture was and everything. I'm just sitting here like, I just thought it made sense. What,
I just like the dancing.
I like the dancing. Yeah, sure. And so when this movie comes out, people are just making this big deal of like they feel offended that he's saying "fuck you" to the fans who liked the first one. I'm kind of like, okay, well, that makes no sense. I gotta even know why you even love it that much, in the first movie. But then also like, what?
David? Can you repeat that? Isn't that kind of like what the fuck right now? Like that part you just mentioned. Like, why are people thinking of Joker that way in the first place?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of people that view Joker as like an incel rallying cry, and like in like a positive way, like other incels. He was their hero. They basically treated Joker like the people in the movie, like, so in this movie's like, I guess doesn't embrace that.
It rejects it completely.
Yeah, they view it as like spitting on the fans of the film, which, okay.
Yeah,
some deserve to get spit on all the time.
I agree with that, and that's part of why I'm taking such pleasure in this. David, continue.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say. I just find it weird how some people are so mad about the sequel. Like, it's understandable. Like, you can be disappointed because whatever he did in the first one doesn't seem like to correlate with the second one and all that. But I don't know. It's just people are weird.
A few weeks back, we teased the idea of one day doing a reaction because none of us had seen this movie ever. Doing a group reaction to Madam Web. And I feel that still would be a lot more fun than watching Joker follow you do. Because I think Madam Web is a so bad it's good. I don't think Joker 2 is a so bad it's good. I think it's a so bad it's boring.
Oh, man, that's the worst thing a movie can be.
Because I watched it over the weekend, and I don't want to give a full review here, but let me just say here, I was bored, by the way, halfway through, and I kept looking at my phone, and I was just like, how much longer do I have to be here?
You didn't like Lady Gaga singing?
No.
Singing about loving the Joker, baby?
How do you hire Lady Gaga for a musical, and you don't just tell her to write all the songs? Again, look, the whole thing is just, it's a misfire. I think Alicia Grasso, I saw on Twitter today, she put it the best about like just the conundrum here. She says, the more I ponder Joker Follow You Do, the more I don't know what Todd Phillips wanted. He seemed to fundamentally hate each genre. It was a comic book movie with no comic book elements. A musical with no musicality, a Joker movie with no Joker, and a crime movie with no crime. I think that perfectly sums up what Todd Phillips is as a director and as a filmmaker. Just at every turn, refusing to commit to anything. And again, I don't think that's intentional. I just feel like he's just not very good at his job. So, that's that.
I think the best review I saw was someone put, smoking isn't a personality.
Yeah, because there's a lot of fucking smoking.
It just feels like he just thinks that's the coolest fucking thing. It's like, oh man, I'm the Joker. I smoke. Like, honest to God, that's what it felt like the first movie was too, where it's like the coolest fucking thing he could do was hit a cig, and it's like, okay, I guess.
Yeah. I wanted to pivot over to this story that came out of Variety, the future of the movies. Look, this response to Joker...
Fuck Variety.
Right. This response to Joker, Follow You Do, always has the potential to, lead to some very disturbing talking points, sway the powers that be. And, one of those enforcers, Grace Randolph, because she spouts off these talking points like, this is why you need to give more credence to the fans, and this is why you should stop the directors from trying to do what they want to do. This is the infuriating piece about this. The fact that Todd Phillips accidentally found his way to get a big budget to make a film that he wanted to do with no restraints whatsoever, and one that also happened to be a big fuck you to fans. That's amazing that exists, and he got to do that, and we need to have more of that. But it's now being covered in this bomb, and now that's going to make it even less possible for better filmmakers to do that.
This is stupid though, because that's how the first movie was a hit.
Right?
The film has literally nothing to do with the comic counterpart of Joker. He literally just took two of Martin Scorsese films, remixed it, and slapped paint on Joaquin Phoenix and called it Joker. It has literally nothing in common with the comic counterpart of Joker in any other than some iterations of Joker, kind of like a loser. But that's it. It was made by Todd Phillips, who very clearly has disdain for the fucking fans and comics, and you can see that in the first film. And it was relatively, director driven. He made the movie he wanted, the first one. It's not like, I mean, it was a smaller budget, but it's not like he had all these studio notes. He just made the fucking movie. And it was a $1 billion hit that won 2 Oscars, right? You can't, when the winds come in, say one tune, and then when they fail, say another tune. Both instances are driven director projects that say fuck you to the fans, do their own thing, have disdain for the source material, and one was a massive fucking hit and the other one sucked and failed. To me, it's the same of like whenever a shitty movie that has a woman in it, it's like, oh, well, this is clearly evidence that audiences don't want women in their films. They are tired of this diversity. And it's like, you know how many movies that are male-led fucking bomb every year? But no one has the conversation of like, maybe audiences are tired of seeing men on screen. Like, no one says that. No one has that conversation because it's silly and fucking stupid. But then we always are forced to have these other useless conversations when other certain films bomb.
No, you're absolutely correct, because the weekend, as the returns were coming back, people were giving voice exactly to what you just talked about, which was the fact that we don't have, every time like just films bomb, we don't have these conversations of like, oh, do projects that are led by men, like, do they not have the ability any longer to make money? Do we need to stop making movies with, men as the leads? No. And as one person here put it quite beautifully, where are the Variety articles maligning the director? Where are the problematic graphics showing how white male leads are the downfall of the franchises?
Yeah, they love to do that shit with other directors. Man, they really go for the throat of other directors, like Nia DaCosta. Is painting her as like a piece of shit.
For attending her own birthday party?
For attending her own birthday party and shit. Like, she abandoned the project. And it's like, no, she did her job and then she was done. It's a Marvel movie. They don't get final cut on shit. They're on set there to babysit their A-list actors, and then that's it. But yeah, that's why I say fuck Variety. Like,
and then also the same. Again, Variety also, didn't they have a headline this week saying "Hang in there, Todd Phillips"?
Yeah. He got like $40 million to make a shit film. Like, I don't care.
Personally, you mean he got $40 million? Because I think, look, what's not being discussed more is, I think to me the biggest problem here is why. Look, okay, you made a very successful first film with a tiny budget. Why would this movie ever need $200 million?
It's Lady Gaga. It's his massive bump in directing fee, and Joaquin Phoenix I guarantee you, I think he probably got 40 million too. I don't know how much Lady Gaga went, but I guarantee you, for the three of them, you're probably at the 100 million mark.
I agree with you. That is all fine and well, but at some point, there needs to be more attention paid to these exploding budgets. Just this past week,
yeah, for sure,
it was revealed what the true budget was for the Marvels, which bombed. Maybe I think it's the biggest bomb of Marvel Studios' whole history last year, right? $347 million.
Can I be honest? I think a lot of it's like this isn't a conspiracy. This isn't a joke. This is like a money laundering scheme.
Right?
I really do think so. Not specifically money laundering, but people understand that it's easy for money to go missing in these massive budgets than it is for smaller films. I think you have producers going out and having like multiple like $10 million dinners, Like like just spending the money in ways that are not necessary, right? Like I think there's a 500 people, producers, movie, just all these people behind the scenes using the money in ways that in no way helps the film, but definitely fucking helps them, you know? And it's just, I guess there's like no oversight, and it's gotten worse and worse because these budgets are fucking insane. And whenever you have a movie come along that's just very strict about its budget and where the money goes, you'll see these things where people make incredible films for a fraction of what these big blockbusters are being made for, and they look incredible, and they're made well, and so I do think, I don't know, money laundering is the exact correct term, but I think people get a general understanding of what you mean when you use phrases like that. But also on top of that, it is this idea of like, we have no idea what movie we're making. We're writing the script while we're shooting it, so that means we have to reshoot a lot of things.
And it was confirmed Gaga signed on before a script was even done.
Yeah. And then on top of that, I do think the one people in Hollywood that I think are getting overpaid instead of underpaid are A-list actors. I think for the most part, A-list actors do not bring in the box office like analysts say they do. They really don't. I don't think they're worth a lot of the money that they're given. Like you'll see like $200 million pictures, right? But like half the budget just goes to the talent. Sometimes even more, right? And they're just not worth it. I'm sorry, Joaquin Phoenix isn't worth all that fucking money.
No.
Even Lady Gaga isn't worth all that money. Clearly they weren't. Look at the box office.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really hoping that we move to a place. That's
by the way,
places.
If Rachel Zegler was in this movie, people would have been burning her alive right now.
Yeah, for sure.
It takes the right personality that people hate, and they'll be like, "It's your fault. We're gonna destroy you." But because it's Gaga and Phoenix, well, we can't blame them. It's not their fault. We can't destroy their careers.
Yeah, fuck that. Not that I want to destroy their careers, but it's just bullshit. The double
standards.
The double standards. But yeah, the budgets are ridiculous, and very clearly the money is being mishandled from the way that the movie is being made, from the salaries that certain people are getting, to just behind the scenes borderline money laundering going on.
I wonder how much the real budget is going to be for Captain America next year.
Like 400 million, maybe. I don't fucking know.
I feel like it could be more than that, especially as they brought on Harrison Ford, maybe.
And it's gonna look like a $50 million stretched to be a 400. Yeah, I don't know. That one looks pretty embarrassing.
That's the part about this that's not being discussed enough by people. It's like, look, I feel like we've been saying these last 2 years is that word of mouth matters more than anything else, and it can do great for you like Barbenheimer, or it can kill you like Joker Folia do. And so what is the best way you can anticipate for whether or not the film takes off or not? Get these fucking budgets under control first. And I don't think they're not going to stop themselves from shooting without a finished script. Maybe that ship has sailed. But at least get the numbers down. Get the numbers down.
It should be such an easy thing, because it's like, hey, if it turns out to be a mega hit, the profit is larger. And if it turns out not to be a mega hit, the losses are lower. It's like you're winning either way, guys. Mm-hmm. Bring that shit down. You can still make incredible films, but it just takes planning ahead of time. It just makes actually understanding the film you're making before going in and making it. But
yeah,
it seems to be a lost art.
For sure. And back to Variety and what they were reporting about this story that I think a lot of people were so fucking depressed about. And I was just like, I couldn't believe what I was reading because I think it almost kind of. The last 10 years have led in many ways to this moment. I feel like, I mean, some people were not as serious about it. Of all people, Grace Randolph was like, you guys are overreacting. This is actually, and she was actually saying this is pretty good. And of course she would say that. But most everybody else is just like, the sky is falling. This is bad. This is it. This is all, folks. Variety reporting that studios are assembling superfan focus groups to assess various materials for a franchise project to avoid social media backlash. This is coming from the article, which was said, this was in the article, they will just tell us if you do that, fans are going to retaliate. If it's early enough and the movie isn't finished yet, we can make those kinds of changes.
I think social media also plays a factor in it. I think a lot of people get very scared and fidgety. A lot of these producers, executives, whatever, and I think shooting shittily on like a backlot green screen makes it easier to change things. You know what I mean? Cut out characters, cut out relationships, cut out plot lines, completely reshoot certain scenes. Yeah.
Do you feel this is going to change much, or are we already at this point? This is just the confirmation, and it's just validating the loudest voices in the room even more.
Yeah, but that always happens. Look at politics. Yeah, no, this isn't gonna get better. When has it ever gotten better?
Here's some reactions. Brennan Hodges. Finally read this, and the damning thing is how superfans have forever proven they lack the taste to not only make good choices, but lack the self-awareness of what would actually please them. Endless classics would be lost if studios listened. Art is nothing without risk.
Yeah.
He continues, just consider how many castings, how many movies, how many TV series would have been irreparably damaged if we ever listened to what these superfans wanted. They're a toxic, stupid, and entitled group, and the more you pay attention to them, the greater this problem becomes. It's also superfans aren't united by anything but their hate and entitlement. They're as likely to hate each other's ideas around Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, comics, whatever, as they are a filmmaker's vision. Listening to them isn't just anti-art, it won't result in pleasing them anyway.
Yeah, but they're going to try anyway. Because it's a business. Yeah.
David.
The trick...
No, I'm sorry, Peter. Peter,
no,
go ahead.
David, talk. Speak, David.
No, yeah, it's just that this whole thing is just stupid because by superfans, what do you mean by that? Or like, who are you getting? Because
Geeks and Gamers?
Because superfans, it's the ones are the people who like freaking love the heck out of Mandalorian and Boba Fett or something like that, when both of those things were not good at all. But then also, are you going to get people... But then also at the same time, you're going to get people who won't really want to change anything about whatever fucking franchise they're going to be talking about and all that. You're like, sorry for the superfans, but like you need someone there who just doesn't give a shit about whatever, thing you're going to make, whatever thing the studios are going to make. I feel like Andor just constantly proves this. Like, you had the director who did not care for this franchise, but he made the best thing that's come out of Star or Lucasfilm in a long time. But at the same time, I will say this: there were people behind the scenes who love the franchise. Every time they would ask the director, like, "Oh, hey, there's this thing in the background of this episode," and he's like, "I don't know." But set designers put that in because the set designers are fans of the franchise, or either maybe either they're either fans or they're kind of like, okay, we need to come up with something, and just put in the effort to like look up whatever they could about the franchise and went, okay, this could be a fun little thing and this could be a fun little thing, let's make all of this and all that. It's like there needs to be a balance of like, okay, you need to look at this from an objective point of view, going, okay, what's the problem with this thing, and is there a way you can fix it? Should I even fix it? Because I mean, I know Lord of the Rings, apparently the director in the third movie, the director didn't like the ghosts in the third movie. Like, he really wanted to take it out, but he did decide to leave it in either way because it's a big part of the book, and he thought maybe the fans would be disappointed if that was left out. And so, you know, that's just stuff that you kind of have to think about, and it's better to be either a super fan of it or maybe just look at it from an outside perspective and all that. So it's this whole super fan, whatever the fuck they're calling it, it's just not going to work out at all.
A lot of tweets I've seen here have pointed this out. To think somehow this traces all the way back to The Last Jedi, a critically acclaimed movie that made $1.3 billion. Again, also another one. It's crazy how this is directly linked to people not understanding The Last Jedi. Ever since that movie, people have wanted their blockbuster films to not make them think, feed them on nostalgia, and not take any risks.
I do think it comes back to The Last Jedi, specifically because I think that was the birthplace of the grifter YouTuber. I think that was the point where all these channels blew up, where they realized, man, I can make a lot of money on hate. And they completely just followed the money. And I think a lot of these hate channels that survive off being like, what's her name? Brie Joy, fucking.
You mean
Brie Larson?
Brie Larson. Brie Larson.
Fucking, she's a woman. She said that fired. She got fired by Kevin Feige. Just lies, you know. But I think that's where those channels exploded. Like, exploded. Mm-hmm. And that's where I think, I mean, it already existed, but it's just sort of the more modern version of this insane entitlement from, like, quote-unquote fans of, like, you disrespected me. You disrespected Luke, and stuff like that, like just extreme shit. I think that's where it does tie back to. So I do think it's fair to say The Last Jedi kind of started it. Not really, honest to God, not even anything that the film did necessarily, because the film is so fucking reassuring of fans. It's hilarious. So I can't even put it on the movie itself. The movie itself wasn't that provocative at all. At all. It's so very standard in so many ways as far as blockbusters go.
But a damn good one.
Oh, a damn good one. I one of my favorite blockbusters of the last decade.
Ever.
Well, I mean, I guess if I put it neck and neck with like Empire, I guess I would say ever. But yeah, so I can't even blame the film. It's not like, I think you can argue that Joker Fully does some shit that is
intentionally trying to spit in people's faces.
For sure. But not, it's insane to me that I can call The Last Jedi controversial in any way.
Yeah, I feel the same way, but I also feel like something that it didn't even cross my mind, but where we were in 2017, trying to think back to that time, this morning while I was getting for work on my YouTube feed, I saw a video pop up by a channel I had not heard of in a long time, Fandom Entertainment, which was formerly Screen Junkies, and they had a review of the film, which featured one of the OG members, Spencer Gilbert. And then I was even just kind of aghast of just completely gobsmacked of what am I watching here? It was released this week, a Movie Fights episode, and they got Hal Rudnick back to host it. And I'm like, what year am I living in all of a sudden? I had not seen that in such a very, very long time. And now that we're talking about this, is it a coincidence that at this time in late 2017, when these hate channels blew up, within the span of 2 years, Collider and Screen Junkies would all but be gone? When they were such big voices in this space.
It doesn't surprise me. To me at the time, I knew it was a bubble. But what's replaced it does surprise me because it's infinitely worse. Like you can point to Screen Junkies and
Collider. They're schmoes.
Well, they're the schmoes. They're just kind of awkward shills for stupid nerds.
Remember
shit.
when we were bitching about them all the time, and now we're maybe we had it too. We didn't know what we had back then.
But what's been replaced with it is to me far more cynical,
sinister even.
Yeah, it's shills would be a market improvement
over where we are these days. Yeah, it is. None of this bodes very well for where we're gonna go, and it is just very depressing. Yeah. I don't think we have any more comment to say on this. Before we close today, Peter, you and I happened to watch a film yesterday. Would you like to pull it up on your phone, the Letterboxd description? Because I do feel David said this while you stepped out for a minute there, that he was far more interested in watching this film, not just because it is by DreamWorks Animation, but it actually happens to be by a creator who all of us have had such great just interactions with through his work, Lilo and Stitch and How to Train Your Dragon. Chris Sanders happens to be the director of this film, director and writer. Go ahead.
The Wild Robot, directed by Chris Sanderson. Discover your true nature. After a shipwreck, an intelligent robot called Roz is stranded on an uninhabited island. To survive the harsh environment, Roz bonds with the island's animals and cares for an orphaned baby goose. Starring Lupita Nyong'o, Pedro Pascal, Kit Connor, Bill Nighy, Stephanie Hsu, Mark Hamill, Catherine O'Hara, Ving Rhames, and of course, Matt Berry. The Wild Robot.
Which evidently are based off of books. I had no idea they existed.
Books?
The books, The Wild Robot. As a really interesting observation, it's about DreamWorks these last couple of years. They've been kind of the leading animation studio in terms of adapting directly off of popular children's books, like Captain Underpants, and there's a new Dogman movie coming out by them, and they also did The Bad Guys. So all of which happen to be still very popular with the kids these days. And it's seemingly kept them going. When you think about DreamWorks, yes, Kung Fu Panda 4 came out this year. I think it was well received. No one really loved the film, but it was fine. David, you watched Kung Fu Panda 4, but it's a Kung Fu Panda movie. They're very enjoyable and they're very successful for the most part. But for the last decade, they've kind of just been living off of franchises mostly. 3 How to Train Your Dragons, 4 Kung Fu Pandas, I don't know how many Madagascars, Penguins of Madagascar. I mean, they had 2 Boss Baby movies. Then there, of course, was Captain Underpants, and I can't think of too many more, except for the one that kind of brought them back, which was, in a big way, Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, which was genuinely one of their best films ever. It is kind of crazy how good Puss in Boots is. So that, and then of course it kind of really, the way that animation has really kind of been elevated by the existence of Into the Spider-Verse post 2018. We've been seeing it impact so many animated films. Puss in Boots is one of them, and Wild Robot is no exception. I mean, I can definitely see, now that I've seen the film 2 times, and the emotional weight of the film. And I don't want to oversell things. I mean, you're not going to walk out of here like crying, like in tears, but it is a gut, like it's a heart film. It's a Chris Sanders movie. When you watch The Wild Robot, you're like, yeah, this is the same person that made How to Train Your Dragon. This is the same person that made Lilo and Stitch. It is 100% genuinely Chris Sanders, and I cannot wait to see him get the Academy Award, because this is not a competition. This is genuinely like one of the best animated films in the last couple of years, and there have been, for the most part, some really good, two great animated movies. Unfortunately, not many of them came out this year, but Wild Robot has I mean, look, it has quite a touching story, and also a universal story at that. It is the story of this robot was in a storm. Now they're in the woods, and she's gonna have to find a connection to something in there. And all that you really have to know is that it is such a moving film. It's also a hilarious film at that. It does feel like DreamWorks, but it gets you excited for what DreamWorks can be in these next 10 years. We're so pessimistic about Disney and Pixar that I especially am looking to other animation studios to really pick up the slack. And this gives me hope that there are going to be plenty of other options for us. For those of us who, for every Disney film that gets over-awarded, and in a lot of cases, well, maybe not a lot, but in some cases it is warranted. Like, we shouldn't forget about, The Boy and the Herons, the Guillermo del Toro Pinocchios, the Klauses, Klaus from 2019. We shouldn't forget about the Mitchell versus the Machines, or Kubo and the Two Strings, or Coraline, or Rango. There's a lot, Puss in Boots, a lot of really good animated films that have come out that are not by Disney, that should be more widely seen. And there was even a film that came out earlier this year called Robot Dreams that I never got a chance to see, but I heard such good things about it. So as fans of animation, this definitely was like, I was happy to see it do so well. But it is a great movie, and it worked. It worked on me both times. It worked even better for me the second time. Peter.
I loved it. I told you, I thought it was the best animated film I'd seen in a while. New animated film. I can't even remember the last animated film I saw where I was like a new one where I was like, oh, that's really
Across the Spider-Verse, probably.
Probably, yeah. That was probably the last one. Was Puss in Boots before? It was after.
Before.
It was before?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was after. Okay. So yeah, probably Across the Spider-Verse. And I've said this before, I think, didn't we do a ranking? I can't remember. Lilo and Stitch is my favorite animated Disney film.
Yeah, it's in my top 3 for sure. Yeah.
Ever. I love that film.
Lilo and Stitch is one of my films that I put. Remember, we did a show 4 years ago about like the films that shaped our childhood or something. That was one of my films, Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah. So no, I love that film. And I actually didn't know who was directing this going to that, so it's not that surprising to find that out, because it was just an expertly directed film. It's a very simple story and a very simple premise with simple themes, but just executed by someone you can tell just has that talent and experience to really just pull out everything out of every, you know, scene and encounter and line of dialogue and shot, because visually it's amazing.
Yeah.
It made me not to get negative, but it made me think of what was that movie? Wish?
Oh yeah.
Because I remember when that came out, they said they were going for like a storybook painterly style with that movie, but it never came across. I never saw the movie, but just looking at all the trailers and stuff, it just looked unfinished.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was ugly. It just wasn't well done. And here, like you could see the like paint strokes in the sky, and it was like beautiful. It was like really well done. And to me, this was me finally getting like, okay, this is like, it feels like this is what they meant when they talked about like that sort of vision for it. This was really, really well done. Really funny. I love kids movies that don't talk down to kids.
Yeah.
And this is definitely one of those where it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like death is a thing.
Death is all over this movie, and it's one of
Yeah.
those things that jumps at you immediately, like, oh, okay, we're doing this. A lot of the animals are torn to pieces throughout the movie, and that's just nature.
It's nature, and the world is not perfect. In fact, the world is ugly a lot of times, right? And it's sort of, you know, the message and it's kind of, you know, how do you navigate that? But more importantly, how do you sort of push back on that? The idea, the concept of nature or the theme of nature is sort of, you know, we're sort of programmed, quote unquote, robot, haha, get it, to be competitive and selfish and everything's about survival in that way. But that's not the only way to be, you know. You can survive through kindness and working together and stuff like that. And you know, it's simple, nice themes, but just executed so well. Every sequence was just breathtakingly animated.
Yes.
And the way they moved the camera. Roz is one of my favorite, not, I want to say favorite animated characters. Not that the character itself is one of my favorite, but the way they're
design?
Animated.
Oh, the way that they're animated.
Not just
okay.
the design, but the way they move, the way that they stretch and turn, and the design obviously is a part of it. It's just so well done. And every sequence, just the way the camera moves, the way they shoot it, the music, the way it swells, it's like, okay, like people cared making this film. Which sounds like backhanded, but it's not. It's you could tell just
when you
the
watch
skill
Inside
put
Out
into
2,
it.
you makes you wonder who cared making that movie.
Yeah. And then also it does go places that I think are a little bit less generic than your usual kids film. Like at the setup, I thought like, okay, like I can tell you the second and third act based off this first act. But that actually wasn't true. There was actually a little bit more twists and turns. There's like a revelation that happens basically at the beginning of the second act.
That
It's
I would have
usually
expected to
saved.
happen to the very end, right? I was
Yeah,
thinking the same
mhm.
when I was watching for the first time. I was like, am I, is something happening to me, or is this movie happening like faster than I would have imagined it? And it turns out there was something else that was actually going to be saved for the third act.
Yeah. And it's like, there was a point where I'm like, okay, we're at the third act, it's ending. And it's like, oh no, like there's a little bit more to this, you know, going on. And I actually really liked all that other stuff that kind of happens after that point. And yeah, so there's a little bit more complexity to it in a lot of areas, be that it's animation, it's writing, and it's sort of storytelling and structure. there's just a little bit more to it than you would expect, and all of that adds a lot to the experience. It's easily one of my favorite DreamWorks animated films.
Yeah.
People always joke about DreamWorks being they're just always hit or miss, which it's true. That's like the DreamWorks standard. They'll throw out an incredible film and then throw out like a massive piece of shit.
Or a passable.
Or a passable film. Yeah. They're just all over the place. You know, they put on the blindfold and throw a dart at a board, and that's the quality of film they'll release. Like, I think they've released some of the best animated films ever made, some of the worst, and some of the okayest. You know, it's just very all over the place. And when they release them, you just never fucking know. I don't think anyone counted on the Puss in Boots sequel being as good as it was.
I forgot it. I didn't even know it was being made. I'm like, wait, there's a Puss in Boots sequel? It's like, really? And then it was like, it's good? No, it's great?
Yeah. And then even like the How to Train Your Dragon movies, which I think he made the first one, didn't he?
He did, yes.
So yeah, he's got such a great track record as a director. And you can definitely tell those sort of emotions that he goes for in a lot of his films.
And depending on how well it's doing, and it's doing pretty well, it could I would assume DreamWorks is looking into more movies.
I was hoping it was doing well. I didn't know the box office, though.
No, I think it is doing well. I can look into it right now to see how it's doing, but I feel like it opened pretty well. I mean, at the moment, it's strong enough where it's overtaking Joker Follow You Do in just its first week.
Does that mean much, though? I don't know.
I know, right? But no, it's doing well enough. And as far as the reviews are concerned, it definitely received an A cinema score. So it's
it's definitely a crowd pleaser, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely going for it. This is a 7-day-old article, but here's one. Wild Robot box office passes strong global milestone just 1 week in theaters.
Okay.
So that would suggest it's doing well enough. Yeah, it's gonna be pretty successful. It already is pretty successful. I would imagine DreamWorks would be considering, and I think they've already asked Chris Sanders if they're looking at some sequels, which I think there are source material for sequels to do. So there is that.
It's just one of those movies where it's like, man, Pixar used to make movies like this, you know?
That's the thing. But it also feels more so from a personal standpoint, like the culmination of Chris Sanders' career. When you think about Lilo and Stitch and How to Train Your Dragon and now this, I feel like...
You can feel that DNA, those connections.
Yeah, very much intrinsically in the DNA of it. And like, I feel like we may very well see him get that Academy Award finally for animation.
I hope so. If only so that...
Disney doesn't get it. Or Pixar, or like...
No, I'm not you. I'm not out for revenge.
Revenge.
No,
yay.
Revenge. Who is doing the likes? Why does it do that?
Is
that the live audience?
No, there's no live audience. This happens when I do this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, don't do it. Let me see if I do it. If it does it.
It's just me.
Okay, I guess. Fuck you. No, I'm saying I would like to see Chris Sanderson up there receive it, and then you know what that means for his career, right? So it's like whatever project he wants to do afterwards, he can do it. You know, that's the only real plus side to Oscars or any of these awards.
Yeah,
is usually the very talented people who win them get a little bit of leeway to make more art. And the
case in point, because of the Academy Award win for Best Picture and Director, Chloe Zhao got the rare final cut say of creative control for Eternals on a Marvel movie.
Yeah, and we got a Blade movie.
Oh yeah, that's right. It was great, right? It's a great movie.
We all loved it. It came out 4 years ago. No, but yeah, Yeah, I would say go see it if you're into
it's a great
these kinds of animated films.
It's a great cast of characters too. I gotta say they are sticking with me. I
it.
love Roz. I love Brightbird. Fink was especially hilarious from the very beginning, and then just all the interactions with all the different creatures and characters that we see. I would say Catherine O'Hara is 2 for 2. She played the possum mom. In the movie, that was her. So with this and Beetlejuice, she's on a roll at the box office.
I'll also say in the beginning, at first I was like, "Fuck, dude!" Like it's another one of those examples where, like, a silent film would have been better. It feels that way, at least like within the first second act. But I think by the third, you're like, "Oh no!" Like having them talk served a purpose.
Yeah,
the animals, like there was very real character and story reason for having them talk. Because for a part of me felt like, oh man, this maybe would have hit better, worked better in the beginning of the film if they weren't like there was no talking, like they were just animals. But the talking by the end of it, it's like, oh no, this definitely serves a purpose. It does work,
and it hits.
Yeah, it hits. Yeah, for sure.
So it all worked out, and as you said, it was just breathtaking visuals to look at. And I don't know. And people were really loving the score. For some of this,
really great score. Yeah.
Really great score. For some of there was I think one of the moments in the film was a sweeping music. When a certain migration happens, that's a moment that gets you kind of like, that gets the heart pumping there.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. The reason why I said like every scene just shot so well. At the beginning I didn't notice, but then it's like, yeah, it's the How to Train Your Dragon guy. Those when he's learning how to fly, those shots as they're just like flying through the sky.
Amazing shots.
So well. Like he's got the like how to
It makes you feel like you're flying. It makes you feel like you're flying.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. And rare there's a lot of films that you're flying, but rare do I feel like I'm there with the characters flying alongside.
You feel that weight and that the rush of the air running by and stuff. So it's like, yeah, there is a lot of like culmination in his career up until this film, but everything's just, it's a simple film with a simple story, just executed by, what do you call it? Just a fucking professional that just, everything is just, the emotion is heightened because of how well everything is executed, from the animation to the voice acting to the story and writing. It's just,
and what's also interesting, and I said this to you as well, this is one of the rare animated films where I really, until I realized who was in it, I couldn't really pinpoint the voice actors really at all.
The voice actors, it's been a thing since Shrek, really. Well, actually, maybe before that, but this thing of like everyone is an A-list actor.
Maybe so Pixar did it, right? The stunt casting, Pixar with like Tom Hanks.
Casting.
Yeah.
I guess it was Toy Story. But here, it might as well not have been. Like nothing feels like it's sort of there to be that stunt cast, because I couldn't tell who anyone was. Everyone felt like they were being a character, I guess.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They weren't there just to, hey,
be a celebrity.
I'm an A-list actor. I'm a celebrity, Scuttlebutt. There was no scuttlebutts.
It was more akin to Robert Pattinson and Boy and the Heron.
Yeah, it's stuff like that, yeah. Which, of course, I had read was a big inspiration. Ghibli, at least. I don't think Boy and the Heron specifically, but Ghibli.
Ghibli, for sure. I mean, Ghibli is a big inspiration for a lot of things. But for this, you can definitely see it. Yeah. I mean, just the fact that how much the beauty of nature, and also
the reverence for it.
The reverence for
it.
And
the reality of it.
Yeah. Especially in more ways than one, too, because there are some shots in the film, and the film doesn't dwell on it, but you could definitely tell some shit has happened to the planet.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But I love how they don't... Nothing's explained, because it's not important to the story.
Mm-hmm.
but it's there, where it's like, oh, this is the nature of the world right now, basically.
Also pretty appropriate as well that this comes out around the same time that some pretty massive, historic breaking hurricanes are happening.
Yep. Massive earth-shattering earthquakes in a massively red state that will vote against policies to fix or at least prevent further damage to the earth.
David, have we sold you on this movie?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Watch him not watch it.
He said he was. Well, let's see what happens.
Straight up gonna tell Ale, like, if you don't watch this tomorrow, like, I'm just
gonna murder her.
You know what? I think I'm gonna murder you. Listen here. No, I think she would really like it.
I don't know.
I don't know her taste at all. So, but I think she would. It's a really masterfully done animated film.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. And then if you're still curious about Joker, it'll come on streaming at some point. So it'll be there.
You get access to Max, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's better because then when it sucks, you can just shut it off.
You won't be trapped as I was when I'm like, oh my god, it could be anywhere else but here. But we'll see. We'll see. We're going to go ahead and close it off there, guys. Thank you so much for watching and listening to our ramblings here about the state of where things are. Yeah, right? With movies. Thank you, Peter, and thank you, David, for being available to do this. And we will see you next time. Stay under our red spotlight, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.